There you go. Work. Let's go. Eyes up. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome into practice today, presented by SiriusXM. The Jets are back on the practice field as they prepare to kick off the second half of the NFL season. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen here in the BetMGM studio. We'll hear from Olivia Landis and Brian Baldinger later in the show. Typically, we broadcast on Wednesday, but because the Jets are playing on Monday Night Football, everything's been pushed back a day. That includes the practice schedule and, of course, the content schedule.
I feel a little bit off because behind us here at One Jets Drive, it's like 65 degrees. It feels like spring. Today feels like Wednesday, but it's Thursday, and there are the New York Jets preparing in earnest for the New England Patriots. Monday Night Football at MetLife Stadium. Always get excited for prime time.
This is the second time the Jets will be under the lights at MetLife Stadium. That leads us to today's headline, which everyone needs to take a deep breath, because if you were on Twitter about half an hour ago, you would have seen that Sam Darnold will not practice today for the Jets. Of course, he re-aggravated that shoulder injury, but Adam Gase was saying this is just precautionary. Sam Darnold won't practice today, and the hope is that, and the expectation is that he'll practice tomorrow and play on Monday.
So a couple things here. Sam Darnold continues to deal with shoulder soreness. We saw him take that pop late in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. He did have an MRI earlier this week. Those results were favorable. And Adam Gase said it today before we came on the air. I think it's going to take a lot for him to stay out of this game Monday night against the Patriots. So expect Darnold to be in the lineup, making his 7th start of the year. And in fact, you would anticipate he'll be back practicing, taking team reps tomorrow.
And we'll get into the full injury report later on in this show. You mentioned the Patriots, of course. The Jets play the Patriots Week 9. This is a totally different Patriots team than the world is used to looking at for the past 20 years. They're 2-5 for the first time since 2000, riding a 4-game losing streak. I mean, you never hear those words in recent memory when talking about the Patriots.
You look at the NFL standings and you have to do a double take, because the Buffalo Bills are up there at 6-2, and you have the Patriots 2-5, 3.5 games behind the Bills after losing in Orchard Park last week. This is their first 4-game losing streak in quite a long time. And the biggest difference for the Patriots right now is at the quarterback position. Tom Brady is doing his thing down in Tampa with the Buccaneers. Cam Newton struggling through the air this season, Greens, so far. Just 2 touchdown passes through the air. He's got 6 on the ground, and he's got 7 interceptions. And these two teams, neither one of them have had success down the field so far this season. In terms of 20-plus yard pass plays, the Jets 31st in the National Football League. The Patriots are 32nd.
And let's just clear something up. Joe Douglas did speak to the media earlier this week, and he spoke rather positively of Sam Darnold, even though Sam Darnold's statistics are not where he wants them to be or where the Jets want them to be.
No, you talk about Darnold's stats so far. 0-6 is the start of this year. Connected on 58.6% of his passes with 3 touchdowns and the 6 interceptions. And you mentioned Joe Douglas. The word that I felt after listening to him and taking it all in was accountable. He said, you just don't point the finger at one person for why we're 0-8. And he owned up to a lot of things. He said, I have to provide more talent in front of Sam Darnold, along that offensive line and around him. But there are 8 games to go, and hopefully the Jets are getting good news on the offensive side of the ball around the aforementioned Darnold. But Joe Douglas, he has a lot of ammunition coming up in the offseason in 2021, 2022 to improve this football team. But first things first, let's get in a further evaluation on Sam Darnold if he finally plays with the receivers intended to start this year here maybe Monday night.
One guy that's been a big bright spot for the Jets, and I mean big, that's Makai Beckton, the 6'7", 363 500-pound rookie left tackle. And for more on his performance against the Kansas City Chiefs, let's hear from Brian Baldinger for another Baldy's Breakdown presented by Sharp.
My favorite time of the day when I get a chance to talk about Makai Beckton and what he did in Kansas City last weekend. I mean, he went up against some elite players. He held his own, and he took them for a ride a bunch of times. You're going to have to come into the film room and see this, what I saw from Makai Beckton. Take a look at some of the highlights of Makai Beckton starting on the Jets' first offensive play. First play against Frank Clark. Little push from Alex Lewis, and he puts Frank Clark down on the ground. Frank Gore goes for 7. Now watch this play here. I mean, he's going up against Chris Jones, number 95, and he stabs him right there with Chris Jones' feet at the 45-yard line. Look where he takes him here. He takes him 6 yards off the ball. That's one of the best defensive tackles in all of football. Backs him up 6 yards. And then when it's 4th and 1, get on the highway. Get on Highway 77. Watch where he takes number 55, Frank Clark, right here. He just washes him down, caves in the whole side of the line so LaMichael Pirine can get 4 yards and a first down. His pass protection, he was excellent. I mean, that Frank Clark, number 55, they pay him $100 million to rush the quarterback. And all Makai Beckton did was run him around the arc here. I mean, the ball's long gone, and he's still blocking him around the arc. Just take a look at this play right here. I mean, when they run behind him, watch what he does in 94, Taco Charlton. He just gives him a shove, knocks him sideways. Now he comes up for Daniel Sorensen and gives him a shove. And he just knocks them all out of the way, like a snowplow in the winter, clearing the roads. Makai Beckton is the Jets' best player. He's their brightest star and is a player that they can really build around for the future.
Great stuff on the big ticket from Brian Baldinger. Love the Baldy's breakdowns. But, you know, the trade deadline came and went earlier this week. The Jets did not make any moves on Tuesday, but they did make a number of moves prior to the deadline. So for more on that, let's head to our Sideline Report with Olivia Landis. Liv, what can you tell us about the moves that Joe Douglas made earlier in this week?
Well, Jets General Manager Joe Douglas spoke to the media earlier this week following the NFL trade deadline. One of the main topics of conversation was the team's ability to build up that draft capital for the 2021 and 2022 NFL draft. Over the last several months, the Jets have been able to improve the team's draft capital through multiple trades. As it currently stands today, the team has 9 picks in this upcoming draft and 9 picks in the draft following that. And over all of those picks, they have 8 of them that will be in the first 3 rounds. Joe Douglas said this provides the team a lot of flexibility and opportunity to help improve that roster. The trade started July when Joe Douglas was able to make that blockbuster trade, sending safety Jamal Adams to Seattle for a 1st and 3rd round pick in the 2021 NFL draft and the team's 2022 first round pick. Now, also, in the last couple of weeks, Douglas was able to trade defensive lineman Steve McClendon and linebackers Jordan Willis and Avery Williamson to Tampa Bay, San Francisco, and Pittsburgh, respectively. Through those trades, he was able to acquire a number 5 and 2 number 6s in the 2022 NFL Draft. Douglas also addressed a couple of trade rumors that were floating around during the NFL trade deadline, stating that he was shopping tight end Chris Herndon and defensive lineman Quinnen Williams. He addressed those rumors and said they were absolutely not true. He was never shopping those players. Ultimately, he said it's about building up this team and investing in the players, and that's exactly what you're seeing Joe Douglas do over the last several weeks.
Awesome, Liv. Great insight there as we look at Joe Douglas side by side with Adam Gase. We'll hear from Olivia later on in the show. And the one player I want to highlight of the 3 guys that we saw on that graphic, when talking about Avery Williamson, Jordan Willis, and Steve McClendon, the 3 guys that were traded in season for the Jets, is Avery Williamson. And we'll get to the full injury report in a bit. But Blake Cashman's not practicing. He didn't practice, or he didn't play last week. C.J. Mosley was expected to be a part of that linebacking core. It's a totally different linebacker unit. And the good news for the Jets is that they could be getting Patrick Owasso back in the mix.
Not only might they get Owasso back in the mix against the Patriots, he could be in the starting lineup. You mentioned Cashman. He's dealing with not just one hamstring injury, hamstrings, and Neville Hewitt's been very good for the Jets so far this season. One of the top tacklers in the National Football League. He's been one of the constants on the defensive side of the ball, because when you think about the Jets at the inside linebacker position, we were talking about all off season how deep that position was. But though that core has been thinned out over time, and it started with C.J. Mosley, of course, opting out of the season, and we just saw the trade of Avery Williamson and Blake Cashman dealing with the injury right now. So we're taking a look at the linebackers at practice right now, and there is Patrick Owasso, who is practicing, and you would think that he could be back in line to make his debut here this weekend against the New England Patriots. Avery Williamson, of course, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He goes from a winless team to a team who is a Super Bowl contender right now. The Steelers undefeated. Wasso, of course, played with the aforementioned C.J. Mosley in Baltimore. He was an off-season pickup, got hurt during training camp. Unfortunately, wasn't able to go to start the year. But if you get him back, then you're probably thinking that, hey, he could return to the starting lineup this weekend. And you also have Bryce Hager, who was a practice squad call-up, who was in the mix last week.
All right,
as well.
now let's take a look at the injury report presented by Atlantic Health. We talked a lot about these linebackers with Patrick Owasso, Blake Cashman, one of the guys that's not practicing, obviously. Sam Darnold, we talked about him. A number of limited guys, but the good news for the Jets is that Brashad Perriman is in that next step in the concussion protocol. Jamison Crowder is not practicing today. And those right there are the two guys that all Jets fans need to be keyed in on moving forward.
Jamison Crowder has been one of the most productive receivers in the National Football League. Unfortunately, he's only been able to play 4 games so far, so half those contests. Brashad Perriman, you mentioned him. There he is right now. Still in the concussion protocol. He's going to be limited at practice today. Crowder will work to the side with the strength and conditioning team. Hopefully, he's able to go at practice tomorrow. So if you're the Jets, what you're hoping for offensively is Sam Darnold is thrown to Perriman, Crowder, and Mims tomorrow at practice in the hopes that those guys are finally together Monday night.
And the one thing that we have to keep in mind, in particular against this New England Patriots defense, is that the Jets are going to see a lot of man coverage. That's what Adam Gase told the media earlier today. He said that the way that the Patriots play defense, they blitz a lot. We saw that last year against the Jets on Monday Night Football, and that leaves the receivers one-on-one opportunity. So if the Jets have Perriman, Mims, and Crowder, that's a lot better, or they have a better opportunity to get more explosive plays.
I'm just wondering how the Patriots are going to match up if the Jets are indeed healthy at the wide receiver position. Will Denzel Mims, who had a pair of catches last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, including an impressive grab down the sideline for a 27-yard gain, will the Patriots, if Stephon Gilmore is healthy, put their number 1 cornerback on the Jets' rookie receiver, Brashad Perriman? Maybe it's McCourty, who he sees. And what does Bill Belichick like to do? He likes to take away your top target. Well, every time Jamison Crowder is in the lineup, he's targeted at least 10 times. So will the Patriots try to double him?
You know, it's going to be really fascinating to see if Perriman, Crowder, and Mims can all be on the field at the same time, because after you draft Mims in the second round, the second day of the draft, that's who you're hoping is lining up in what would have been spring football, training camp, and then week 1 of the regular season, to now be in week 9 of the season and potentially have those guys on the field for the first time is truly fascinating.
He's still learning. He's still learning. And the thing is, he's learning as he goes here, because you mentioned, it's a great point, Ethan, that he's only had a handful of NFL practices. He probably just crossed the 10 plateau. So in his first game in the National Football League, he was lining up against Tre'Davious White. Now his third game in the NFL, he might be seeing a lot of Gilmore.
It's like how we described Ashton Davis last week. Baptism by fire.
Yep.
So Denzel Mims facing two of the elite cornerbacks in the NFL in his first 3 games. Let me just read off the injury report really quickly. The other guys, Quinnen Williams and Nathan Shepard, also not practicing. Sam Ficken will be limited today, along with Josh Andrews, John Franklin Myers, Connor McGovern, and Jordan Jenkins. So now it's time for Keys to the Game, presented by SiriusXM with Eric Coleman. ECs wears many hats. He's a host on SiriusXM NFL Radio, as well as a Jets 360 contributor.
Hi, this is Eric Coleman here with SiriusXM NFL Radio. And my keys to victory for the Jets as they face the New England Patriots start on the offensive side of the ball. Now, they need to score touchdowns. New England has struggled on offense to put up points, but they will not beat the Patriots without scoring touchdowns. They cannot settle for field goals this week. On the defensive side of the ball, stopping the run is going to be paramount. The Jets have done a great job of stopping the run in the past few weeks. That trend needs to continue as they face the run-heavy Patriots offense led by Cam Newton. Also, I'd love to see the defense create a couple of turnovers to get the ball back to the offense with great field position. Those are my keys to victory for the Jets this week as they face the New England Patriots.
All right, EC, thank you very much. We talked about Sam Darnold earlier in this show. Obviously, like to reiterate here, if you're just joining us, Sam Darnold is not practicing today, but the hope and the expectation is that he will tomorrow and play against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. There he is on the field talking with Braxton Berrios. And the last time Sam Darnold played the Patriots, ironically, was on Monday Night Football. Not his best game, to say the least. 86 yards and 4 interceptions.
Yeah, and that's the game that he was mic'd up and he said he was seeing ghosts. It's a football term. Listen, bottom line is everybody wants to play on Monday Night Football because that is a time where your peers are watching. So, and everybody in the nation is going to be watching. So Darnold's going to want to be out there. And in fact, if you do have those healthy receivers ready to go, then it gives you some extra juice. But the Patriots are a team that has dominated the AFC East, like we've talked about. They're giving up a lot of yards on the ground this year. The Bills got something going in terms of rushing with Zach Moss and Motor Singletary. Can the Jets get some balance so they get some play-action passing going for Sam Darnold? You just saw Dahl Loggins in there, the Jets offensive coordinator. He's going to be calling plays for a 3rd consecutive game. The Jets have been able to move the ball, Darnold and company, the last 2 games in the first half. What you want to see now is for the 3rd-year signal caller and his teammates to convert when they have opportunities inside enemy territory. And also, they got to do a better job of sustaining positive momentum after halftime.
And Stephon Gilmore did not play last week for the Patriots.
Yep.
We'll monitor his injury status throughout the week. Similar to the offense, it's a different-looking defense for the Patriots, too. Obviously, you think about the new-look Patriots. You think about Cam Newton there, not Tom Brady, but Dante Hightower's not on that defense this year. Patrick Chung, Stephon Gilmore might not play this Monday, so there's a lot of moving pieces there as well for Sam Darnold. Not the number 1 defense that they were last season. So now it's time for our Stats Amazing segment. This week's Randy Lang stat. Randy hits us every week, and he comes up clutch yet again. The last Jets home win over the Patriots, led by a quarterback other than Tom Brady, was in 2000 when Vinny Testaverde's 2 touchdown passes late in the game to Wayne Chrebet lifted them past Drew Bledsoe's Patriots. That's a name. 20-19 on Monday Night Football. Now let's head to NFL Network's analytics expert Cynthia Freeland for more of a look at Monday's matchup.
Thanks, guys. The first thing I'm looking at is the Patriots' run defense, as in they're being the 4th most generous to opposing running backs in terms of rushing yard allowed per game to the position at almost 121 per game. This could be a great spot to really see what the Jets have in La'Mical Pirine. Now, the rookie has had 10-plus touches in each of the past 2 games and played 59% of the snaps since week 6. So this could be a great spot. I really like the red zone opportunity here to maybe slide him into one of your fantasy lineups. The next number that stands out is 11.2, as in another rookie, wideout Denzel Mims, has averaged 11.2 air yards per target over the past 2 games. Now, he's had 10 targets. He caught 6 of those for 84 yards. Next Gen Stats does this cool thing where they do this expected catch rate, and he exceeded his expected catch rate by 4.4%. This is a great sign for things to come. Now, last but not least, switching to the passing game on the other side, the Patriots. Their passer rating is the lowest in the NFL over weeks 7 and 8 at 46.8. This could be a good situation where the Jets defense, and specifically Marcus May, could use some of that characteristic Greg Williams pressure to have an advantage. For more stats and context just like that, join me and Dan Grossa this weekend on The Numbers Game. Back to you, Ethan and EA.
Great stuff from Cynthia. Great stuff from Randy Lang. How about Langer throwing out Drew Bledsoe out there? I mean, Drew Bledsoe hasn't played for the Patriots, or he got hurt, 20 years ago?
2001, and then a skinny kid from Michigan, 6th-round pick, came into the ball game. That was actually 2001 when Bledsoe went out against the Jets. The Jets won that game 10-3. Curtis Martin more than 100 yards rushing, but of course that started the Tom Brady era. That is finally over with the New England Patriots. This is a team in transition. Bill Belichick talked the other day about the salary cap has hurt this team's depth. Most notable change on that roster, of course, is the quarterback. Cam Newton, 2 touchdown passes through the air. And, over the course of the past 20 years, I bet you, even going back to 2008 when Matt Castle was quarterback, I bet you would not talk in the vein that, hey, the Patriots are through 7 games. Their starting quarterback has 2 touchdown passes. So this is a very different looking team. What they do well offensively, though, Greens, is Cam Newton runs it over 5 yards a pop. He's got 6 touchdowns on the ground. And they moved the football last week. They just haven't been able to get anything going down the field. Jacoby Myers was the top receiver for them last week.
I'm glad you mentioned Matt Castle, because Matt Castle was the last quarterback that the Jets played that wasn't led by Tom Brady for the New England Patriots. But the Vinny Testaverde stat goes back. That was the last time the Jets won at home against a quarterback not named Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. But if you want to go the last time they beat the Pats without Tom Brady, that was 2008. That was Matt Castle under center for the Pats and Brett Favre under center for the New York Jets. Now let's wrap up the show with our hurry-up offense. Let's bring back Olivia. So this is what we got. We got 1 minute a pop. We got 3 different questions. Let's start off with the first question. Let me tee this up by saying the last time the Jets played under the lights at MetLife Stadium was Week 4 against the Denver Broncos, Thursday Night Football, and LeBron James decided to tweet about the New York Jets. He tweeted about Sam Darnold's 46-yard touchdown run, said he had a pretty nice juke move for a quarterback, called it an elite running back juke move, as you see on the screen right here. So, Liv, let's start with you. If LeBron James were to tweet about Monday night's game, what play would have happened? So you got to think creative. You got to make a little something up here.
Ethan, I think if it were to happen again, I think I'm going to go with wide receiver Denzel Mims. I think he's going to tweet about Mims bringing the biz. Listen, I just came up with that. I know, a little play on words. I'm bringing in the Ethan Greenberg style here, but I think it would have to be a crazy reception by wide receiver Denzel Mims.
Okay, EA, what about you?
I thought about this one, and Brian Baldner's got me all excited about
Makai
Beckton. So I'm going LeBron James. Here is the tweet. I wouldn't mind driving the lane down Highway 77. Makai Beckton is a star.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with EA here. I really do think that if Makai Beckton catches somebody like he caught Frank Clark with the help of Alex Lewis and puts him on his back, this is Makai Beckton's first start in prime time. Remember, he was backing up in Week 4 and then came in relief before he got shut down. So I'm going with the snowplow, Highway 77. So now let's go to question number 2. Ooh, buzzer beater. That was good. All right, question number 2. We'll start with EA, then we'll hear from Liv. Will the Patriots miss the playoffs for the first time since 2008?
Yes, they will. I think there are just too many good teams in the AFC. It starts with the Kansas City Chiefs, who the Jets saw last week. Pittsburgh's right up there. Baltimore. Buffalo's got a 3.5 game lead in the division. Either Indianapolis or Tennessee is going to win the AFC South, and the other team there is probably going to be in the playoff mix. You think about the Cleveland Browns are off to a good start. The Oakland Raiders. It's just you never count the Patriots out, but you're asking me straight up, No, they're not making the playoffs.
All right, Liv, straight up, yes or no? You got 20 seconds.
I'm going to say yes, they are going to miss them for the first time in a few years, because I have to reiterate what EA said. There are so many good teams in the AFC division, and I just think, even the AFC East, obviously there's been some tough competition, so I'm going to have to say yes on this one.
I'm also going to say yes, they will miss it. We got 1 second left. There is the buzzer. Let's wrap up our hurry-up offense. I'll answer this question first, then we'll hear from Liv, and EA will take us home. If you were to choose what uniform combination the Jets will wear Monday night against the Patriots, what uniform combination would you choose? I'm going white on white. Earlier this season, we saw the stealth black. Last year against the Patriots, we saw the green on green. I'm a big fan of the white on white. The Dallas Cowboys game last season, the Jets had a pretty good game that week. So I'm going spotlight white tops, spotlight white bottoms, Liv. What about you?
I love the black uniforms. They are literally my favorite uniform. I love the Gotham green, so I'm going to say the black tops with the Gotham green pants. I know that's probably not even possible for a combo, but if it were, that's what I would go with.
All right, EA, take us home.
Jets lost in black against the Denver Broncos in their first primetime game, Thursday Night Football in Week 4. So I would come out in the spotlight white. I really like the white against the dark night backdrop.
All right. That's how we wrap up the hurry-up offense. EA and I are sharing a wavelength today.
First time for everything, and that is a good time for the buzzer.
All right, Liv, thank you so much for joining us on Practice Today.
Thanks, guys.
And then that wraps up, really, our show on Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM. The Jets will play the Patriots Monday night. Make sure to tune in to Pregame Central, presented by Pepsi, as the Jets will be under the lights once again at MetLife Stadium.
Go. There you go. Work. Let's go. Eyes up. 1, 2, 3.